ago, we did try to start up this radio team, and we got some momentum going with it. And then other issues took priority, as you can imagine. If you think back the last 3 years, what those other issues might have been that sort of got in the way and took priority over this. But now we're in a good spot where we've got some opportunity to bring back the MRC radio team, and we're looking for a group of people that can help us with statewide communications in the event of a really severe emergency, as you can imagine. We're down to relying on ham radio. That a lot of things have probably gone wrong at that time. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Bill Bradley, who's our head of our communications unit with the Department of Health Office of Emergency Preparedness. So, Bill Bradley, you want to take that away? Or Brad Bradley. Why did I say Bill? Sorry about that, Brad.
Yeah, I'm Brad Bradley. I'm the Public Health Preparedness Systems Manager for the Virginia Department of Health. Thanks everybody for joining us. Also on the line we have Bill Webb. He's our communications engineer for the agency. And without further ado, as Mike alluded to, we tried to start this a long time ago. And what happened there, of course, the other things took priority and we had to stop. So we're trying to get this reinitiated because there may be a need for backup for the Virginia Department of Health specifically. I'm not talking about other agencies and that kind of thing, but I'm talking more about Virginia Department of Health in an emergency when we have to use land mobile radio or something, or ham, or something of like 800 megahertz, whatever, as our backup communications. And there's actually a program in Tennessee that we're kind of modeling ours after. And I think that without further ado, though, I'm going to go over the job sheet that we have for this particular role, and that way you guys get an understanding of what we're talking about. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, great. On the job sheet, first we're going to go over what the expectations are for an MRC radio volunteer. Basically, the expectations are, and this is, if you've been activated for such a role during an emergency, to listen for audio traffic related to the emergency, view radio transmitted digital messages related to the emergency if needed. Sometimes that may not be needed, sometimes it will be. Relay messages, both audible and digital, relating to the emergency if requested. Some people may be asked to go to a location with VDH or associated radio equipment, whether it's at our central communications hub there at the Madison's building, or at a local health district office or health department, maybe even a regional healthcare coordination facility. So we might ask that kind of thing. And also we ask that the people attend exercises, which will be coming up here within sometime within the next 6 months, regarding either in person or virtually, regarding VDH or associated radio processes. Now, how the workflow is going to work on this is basically a request for radio volunteers will be sent via the VVHS system, either statewide or regional, because some of this might just be regional in nature. Upon activation, like it says there, we're going to send out instructions specific to the emergency and specific to your role, and along with other resources. And this will include the ICS 205 form, which is the ICS communications form, which will have all the relevant radio information, including frequencies to be used. And this could be different for each activation. This won't be a general thing. Each activation could be completely different. You could be just doing 800 megahertz radio listening at a location, or you might be doing stars radio listening at a location. Or you could be asked to listen on your particular HF radio along, like on the ham frequencies, or if or on the shares network. And the shares network I'm going to talk about in a little bit, because that does not require a ham license. So, if the expectation is for someone to go to a location for VDH, we'll be giving instructions regarding the site, and then VDH or associated staff somebody will be there to help facilitate access and use of the equipment. So we'll have somebody there to help you out. And communication points of contact will also be included in those specific instructions to be sent upon activations. Then you can see down here a list of people that you would contact for various things, because we not only do radio communications, but we have video and web conferencing capability as well. So if we ever run into problems with that, these are the numbers you call and the emails that you send. One thing I wanted to bring up is notice that there isn't a lot to this volunteer job sheet. That's because this process is very specific, will be very specific per emergency. If you're activated for an emergency, this could be very specific to Richmond only, or let's even say Lennawisco only, or Eastern Shore only, or something like that. And it could have very specific things that we need to have done from the volunteers. So with that, all that said, I'm going to go ahead and ask if anybody has any questions right now. All right, Mr. Forrest has raised a hand. Go ahead.
I think we need Adrenia to unmute him first.
Yes.
All right, hold on just a second. I'm looking at different things in the chat. Nothing in the chat right now.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Pete, W4ND. So are you coordinating with the ARIES, and there's a HEART program? I mean, there's quite a network of ham emergency services been in place for decades.
Right. All those programs are tend to be coordinated through VDM for us. And what we would do, sometimes they might get busy on their own. And this is just for something that might just be VDH related. Only most of the time we're going to be coordinating with VDM anyway. But if there could be an occasion where we need you guys, and we don't necessarily need that much radio coordination with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. So it could be, I can't think off the top of my head of a specific situation, but that possibility does exist. So yeah, but we would be coordinating, we would be letting VDM know what we're doing. And the ICS 205 would also be sent to VDM and the ARIES folks, and who coordinate through VDM for the most part. And we would also contact the statewide interoperability coordinator and provide him all that information as well. Any other questions? All right. For now, I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with the SHARES program that FEMA CISA has. Basically, that I'm actually going to try to ping Bill about this a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. I mean, basically, that's a kind of a program where during an emergency, say it's a nationwide emergency or even a regional emergency, there are certain HF frequencies that are available for use for state agencies and federal agencies that do not require, they're actually do not require a ham license to use. And certain agencies are identified, they have their own call sign, which is similar to what Pete was showing there. And that is specific to those particular frequencies. And having said all that, Bill, I'd like to ping you for a second and see if you can add to what I just said about SHARES. Do you? I'm not. I know it's called SHARES, but I'm trying to remember what the acronym stands for. Bill, can you help me out?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, shared HF resources in a nutshell. As Brad said, it's kind of I'll use the word parallel system to the amateur radio system, but it's quite extensive. It's darn near global now with their reach. There are HF frequencies from a little above 2 megahertz all the way up to 30 megahertz that are set aside for use by shares members. It does not require an amateur license. In fact, they are frequencies totally different from amateur frequencies. They are specific frequencies or channels. They're not bands like the amateurs have. They use it for both voice and digital. They've standardized on the Pactor 3 and 4 modem, but here recently, within the last 60 days, they have authorized the use of Vera HF. They have RMSs set up that will accept both Pactor and Vera HF. And I can address questions if someone wants to raise it. I don't know what else you'd like to know about the shares.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I wanted to, there may be, Norm has raised his hand. Go ahead, Norm.
Yeah, so I'm still kind of missing something here. Let's say we have an event that we need to be activated on. How am I going to be contacted? In other words, how would I know?
Well, first off, you're going to get a notice from VVHS.
And how would I get that notice?
How do you normally get your VVHS notices?
Well, by email is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's where all the VVHS notices come from. And Mike, I'm not sure if you send texts and stuff too through VVHS now.
Yeah, so VVHS is the system we normally alert volunteers through. It's a pretty robust system that can send. Really, it's based on the MRC volunteers what preferences they put in this system, but it can alert you through text, email, phone call, all the above. So one of the questions obviously is if we're having a statewide communications emergency where none of those capabilities exist, that we would have to go through the amateur radio process to alert you at that point. But normally the normal process is through the VVHS system, which again, hopefully we'd be doing the alert before, when we have warning that something bad might happen and get you guys prepared and in place. Or if there's an area in the state where we've lost communications that we need to get communications to, but we've got people outside that area we can contact through VVHS. But if in the worst case scenario, we would have to contact probably through the amateur radio network.
Okay, so that through the amateur radio network, that would imply to me, I'm thinking WinLink type of thing.
It's possible we would use WinLink. There are multiple avenues where we might be contacting people because, like I said, every emergency is radically different. We've found that in the past, and we're going to find a way to get in touch with you one way or another. We send out carrier pigeons, who knows? But we're going to find a way to contact you and ping you guys to see, if you can help us or not. And don't forget, this isn't just ham radio we're looking at either. We're looking at, you may be asked to go to a site that's basically listening to our, helping with our STARS radio communications because they don't have anybody that can come in to just at least key the mic and move to the right talk group in the right zone and speak to the right people. We may be asking for that too. And asking for UHF and 800 megahertz type stuff because we have that capability. But, we'll find a way to get in touch with you.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the trainings to see how this all works out.
Yeah, you and I both are looking forward to those trainings. Thanks, Norm. All right, somebody else raised their hand.
Yeah, that's me. Are you considering being able to activate Arden for high speed if we need it?
That is something that we would have to look at as part of the specific emergency, because if we do need it, then we will activate it. If we don't, and if we feel we don't need it for that time, we won't necessarily be calling for that capability. Let's see, any other questions? I'm looking through the chat now. All right, Bill, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I don't think I used the term WinLink when I was speaking before. Those of you that are familiar with the WinLink message passing service, it's both HF and VHF and UHF. Shares has a parallel system that they use for WinLink with their own RMS gateways and their own frequencies. So there's a lot of available resources in the RF world for getting something done when the normal means of communications are not available to us. And that's all I have at this point, Brad, unless there's questions.
All right, thanks, Bill. Yeah, we're here for questions. Mike, did you want to speak about how I guess how the data is going to be collected regarding the people that are willing to do this role within VBHS?
Say that again. Sorry, Brad. I was looking at the chat.
Yeah, the about how people can identify themselves in VBHS regarding wanting to help with this role.
Oh, great. Yeah. So that's the I just put a form link. It's not really a survey so much as a sign up form. And you just go in there. There's 5 questions that just ask you, did you attend this training today? And clicking yes will allow us to put into VBHS your 1 hour of volunteer credit for attending the training today. And then there's some other questions. Do you have your own equipment? Would you be willing to go to a VDH site and operate our equipment? Do you have your license? And that sort of thing is, again, just 5 questions, and that will allow us to then code your profile in VBHS accordingly, so that next time when we have to do an alert for this, whether it's for an upcoming exercise or drill or for a real world event, we'll be able to actually target the alert to people based on how they filled out this form. And there are folks that are probably on here that have already filled this out or something similar in the past, and we've already got you coded that way in VBHS. And even if you've done that before, please just go ahead and fill out this quick survey, and that will allow us to make sure that you're coded correctly. And I see we do have a question with the person in the hand raised.
Yeah, good morning. My name's John. I tried clicking on the form link and it says I don't have permission to view the form.
Okay, yeah, let me just tweak that for a second. I think I just created it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.
Let me just make sure. Oh, okay, hold on.
If I can add to that, I clicked on it to ask for a sign in. I put my Microsoft sign in, says I can't use my personal account. I have to use my work or school account to sign in.
Yeah, let me see. All right, I had it set so only people in my organization could respond. I just changed it. So I put a new link in there. Tell me if that works. And thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, it looks good now. Thanks.
Yeah, I see I'm already starting to get responses. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. There's a little drop down that I forgot to click. Allow people outside the organization. So that's great. And then there's also the train course ID evaluation as well. That's just about the course itself, what you thought about the course. And then you can fill that out. We can mark you as trained in train as well.
One more question. I noticed, is there a way it's tracking my particular response? Because I'm not entering a name or contact information.
Shoot. Okay, hold on. Everybody stop filling out the survey for a second. Yeah, hold on. All right.
So, excuse me. So this is Adrenia. While Mike is working on this survey, also in train, Mike just mentioned the course that you registered to attend in train for this meeting today. You need to go back and you will see the selection take evaluation, or you can also go to my learnings and my evaluation for this course will appear. Go ahead and take that. And so train will actually complete and verify you attending this meeting or this training this morning. And it will stay open a week. And after next week, it will close. So go ahead and do that. And that's for training purposes. It will transcribe over to BVHS for you. And of course, stay in train in your transcript for trainings.
I've got another issue, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Nick Lomagino. I'm extra class operator, I'm also Mars and shares member. I'm also a physician and the district captain for Coast Guard Auxiliary in Maryland. We also run a VHF radio and HF radio, and this might be something that we can partner with our emergency management if there is some disaster and it may involve shallow water or off the coast. It might be, we might want to think about partnering so that we can have a unified response if you're interested. And I realize it's just starting up, but maybe that's the place to look for leveraging each other's resources and capabilities. Over.
Yeah, I've actually heard about that. And I know that through our Department of Emergency Management, they already have plans in place to help coordinate with that. So if it gets to the point where we have to involve other agencies besides just VDH, everybody will be involved. Every possible group out there will be involved if we can get the coordination through the Department of Emergency Management. But I appreciate that because, yeah, I've heard about that program. That seems to be a pretty robust program.
Yeah, do you want me to put my email in the chat and you can save it and reach out when you feel ready?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, and for those of you, if you could just go back to the survey again, if it's already up on your screen, refresh it, or you can click on that link again that Adrenia just put in the chat. So yeah, we had 9 responses, but I forgot to put in name and email. So that was my bad. Please, if you could just refill that out again and put that in there. And thanks for catching that.
While everybody's filling out the form, I really appreciate, everybody that's attending. This is something like Mike said, this is something we've been wanting to do. Oh, thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate it. But this is something we've been wanting to do for a while. And so, the next steps beyond filling out the form and such, basically when we come up, we're going to exercise as soon as we can and provide, we'll alert you as soon as we're able to set up the exercise. We'll alert everybody through VVHS and see who's willing to perform what role, that kind of thing. And then for those that have signed up to participate in the exercise, then what we'll do is send those people specifically the ICS 205 and any other resources regarding the particular exercise scenario, emergency scenario. So that would be the next thing that happened. But I think filling out the form was the first step for you guys. Am I right on that, Mike?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's what's coming down the pipe. I did want to share something. You mentioned VVHS a few times today, and that was the original system that you guys filled out your volunteer application for. You should have a login password for that. You can go in anytime and check your profile in there and get updates. We're actually deploying a big upgrade to VVHS in the third week of April. The look and feel is going to change significantly, and it's going to be a lot more focused on the volunteer. Prior to now, VVHS was really designed for the people that manage volunteers, and it's for the volunteers themselves. What you see in VVHS may or may not be that useful or that user friendly for you, but we're doing a big upgrade, and so we're pretty excited about that. Third week in April is Volunteer Week, National Volunteer Week, and so that's where we're going to deploy our new VVHS look and feel, and so pretty excited about that as well.
And I would anticipate, like there may be, there were times during the COVID-19 pandemic response that locations that were doing pods that at the time did not have radio communications. I could anticipate that sometimes in that kind of a scenario, you guys may be asked to do such a thing. That's just one scenario. There's probably a million scenarios where we might reach out and touch you guys. So that's just one idea, because I know that there was questions about that early on when the early points of dispensing were set up, and every health district had their own solution, so to speak. Mike, you were involved in that heavily for Central Region, and I think they all had their own solution. But we might be able, we might reach out and ask you guys for help as well.
Yeah, I know that's true. I mean, even though we paused this because of the pandemic, looking back, there are things that we learned during the pandemic where this would have been useful to have had we not, abandoned this early on. I think we could have certainly used you guys during that response, but lesson learned, and we'll be better prepared next time because of this. So, all right, I know we got one more question here from Norm. So Norm, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Are you guys familiar with the Virginia EMCOM?
Yes, I'm intimately familiar with that.
A ham radio activity that we were having exercises almost every Thursday, and they would use WinLink exclusively and have different scenarios and different forms, etc. So they're pretty well set up and tied into communications, if you will, through the ham network. So just something else you might want to investigate and connect with, because they're pretty well set up, and also we have WinLink Wednesdays also. I have like 500 and some different people attending every Wednesday. So I'm not sure how you're integrated with those, but it's something to think about.
Well, I know I'm very familiar with that, and Bill is too. I think Bill actually participates in a lot of this stuff. So on behalf of the Virginia Department of Health, but the one thing that I do know that in that particular setup you're talking about, part of the statewide interoperability executive committee, which exists in this state, we talk about that every single time we have a meeting. And I know that VDM and our statewide interoperability coordinator would be heavily involved in coordinating anything that we do with them. So rest assured, if you're part of that, this does not supersede any of that stuff. This is not intended to supersede any of that stuff. This is intended to either help, or we could, if all the other stuff is not needed at the time and we just need the MRC help, we would go ahead and implement our job action sheet that you saw earlier. So but yeah, I'm very familiar with that, and that's a good program too. There's so many programs out there for ham radio stuff. It's just unbelievable the number. So I think in the grand scheme of things, as the emergency develops and we sit down and try to coordinate all these resources, I think that it's a multi-tier process, and we start out with our folks, and then we reach out to you guys, and then we may reach out to VDM and Aries and all these other organizations out there. There's the Heart organization in the Eastern region's another one. So we would reach out to them, and it would just our role at that point would just be coordinating all the resources like that. So
And
thanks for
Brad,
asking, Norm.
yeah, and I think, Brad, the other piece of this that we really need help with is operating our equipment, because we've got Brad and we've got Bill Webb, and that's it. Like the state in terms of, people on VDH that can operate the amateur radio. So although the networks are there, we need somebody from our end to receive those communications and transmit using our equipment at our ECC and our alternate ECC and at our different health district locations. So I could see more of a demand for you guys to come in and work with us and do our communications for us, to be frankly honest. But also we might need relay stations as well, depending on where we're trying to communicate to.
And Mike, if I could add to that, the agency, I on the behalf of the agency participate in WinLink Wednesday, both the HF and the VHF peer-to-peer session every Wednesday, using the local gateways, the RMSs around the Richmond area. We also participate in shares. Wednesday is the busy day of the week because shares has their national and then their regional roll calls or nets. And then again at 7 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday, shares has the Northeast region, and we participate in that each week. And of course, we've got STARS radios at each of the health district offices. And if you're not familiar with STARS, it's people like to call it the state police radio system, but it's not. STARS is the state agency radio system. It does the state police administer it, but they don't own it, so to speak. It's a shared resource across all state agencies. It's a really good system, and especially with the code plug that VDH has, every one of our STARS radio can reach out all the way across the state. It's not limited to a division or a region. And I guess that's all I have at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. There was a question in the chat about whether we use DMR, D-Star, and the like. Can you answer to that while I'm responding to another question?
Right now, we are not using DMR. That's digital mobile radio. D-Star. Let's see. There's a couple of digital systems, and because of the fact that I think there's three digital systems out there right now, we're staying with WinLink. It's more widespread. It's not region specific, and I think we can accomplish what we need to do using WinLink as opposed to using the digital mobiles.
Well, thanks, Bill. Hey, Norm, do you still have a question? Because your hand's still up. That's okay.
That's probably me. I've been trying to work, knowing it when we do have a disaster. A lot of times people don't have AM or FM radio. A lot of people don't have that because it's digitized. There's this blinding period. I've been working with, there's a link called Disaster Radio. It's a mesh network where you set up the mesh network over a region with a solar panel and a battery. And what happens is that regular people that have to come up can actually see a map and actually find out where they need to go. or where water or supplies or anything else is. It's being done in California because of earthquakes, but some other places are talking about it. I'm only mentioning that as some other event that can be pushed into, because my concern is that we'll be doing a great job, but then the civilians won't know where to go. And I have a concern about that. Over.
Yeah, that's something that's a concern whenever we have an emergency like a hurricane or something like that, the kind of flooding, like what happened in Franklin. A lot of the folks, they didn't know where to go to get what because everything was blacked out down there for a while. And yeah, having something like that is very important. And I think that the Department of Emergency Management is actually looking closer into that versus than anything VDH we'd be doing specifically. But that kind of process, though, would be very helpful for us in the event we need to provide vaccinations or any kind of prophylaxis out there regarding a public health emergency. So that kind of thing would be very important. I think we would end up coordinating with VDEM on that.
Yeah, basically all they need is their smartphone.
Yep. That's what I read about. That's a really cool thing. And I had a question. Kathy asked, where is the site where the equipment I spoke of was located? I noticed there was a March 27th MRC request mentioned, which was near Midlothian. I haven't asked for anything yet for comms stuff. Mike, are you familiar with an MRC request for anything regarding comms?
I'm tracking one. I can look that up. And we do have a lot of MRC requests that are going out kind of every day for different things, but I don't think we've got anything related to it. But you can go through places where we do have the radio equipment, Brad.
Yeah, we have radio equipment. We have the STARS radio that Bill mentioned in every health district, and also at our regional healthcare coordination centers, which actually coordinate emergency response for our hospitals and long-term care facilities and dialysis centers, things like that. And they have their own comms, and those are not owned by the Virginia Department of Health. The STARS radios are. But the regional healthcare coordination centers have their own communications capabilities. And once we talk about this with them, because we wanted to kick this off first, and because they're essentially contractors for VDH through the Virginia the Hospital and Healthcare Association, that those guys may be interested in reaching out to you folks for a particular region. For help during emergencies as well in regards to hospitals. But that'll be a separate initiative. That won't be our initiative, but they may want to make use of this once we let them know that this exists, this particular initiative exists. The Virginia Department of Health, though, we have HAM and HF capability and UHF capability and VHF capability in our Madison building Central Office Emergency Coordination Center. And we also have some STARS capability at our alternate Emergency Coordination Center. We have, there are several districts around that have their own 800 megahertz capabilities, and they're interlinked with the local public safety. We have a comlink system, which is essentially, I'll let Bill correct me on this, but the comlink system is essentially a computer application that allows us to pretty much reach out and touch our radio assets remotely from, and also it allows us to we essentially could act like a dispatcher if we had such a need. And we can also communicate via video and chat over that as well. And that's a very robust tool. And along with our radio assets, allows us to be interoperable with everybody around the state. Bill, you want to chime in on the comlink if I left anything out?
No, it's a series of IP gateways that use what they call ROIP technology, radio over internet protocol. And as Brad said, you can remote into any one of these gateways from anywhere in the state, and then all their radio assets, all their assets are available to you right there. In addition to that, most of the radios that are connected to the gateways are steerable, meaning you can remotely change the channels from your local client. That's a huge tool, and it's very difficult for me to describe audibly. When we get to that point, we'll sit down and we'll demonstrate if need be. That's
Thanks,
all.
Bill. I appreciate it, Bill. And like I mentioned in the chat, we're going to be sending information out regarding training when it becomes available for our various radio assets, including Comlink. We already have some online courses regarding Comlink, but what we'll do is we may end up trying to tailor those to non-state agency personnel, such as yourselves, and present those a little bit differently. But as with anything, online courses are only goods for so much. You gotta get out and touch the stuff and use the stuff in order to retain that information. So that's the plan. We'll provide some online content. Then we'll set up a time where we might have a webinar or something, but then we'll set up a time to where people can actually come to a location that has the equipment we're talking about, and then we can actually demonstrate it along, and that way you have a 3-tier training approach.
If I might add one little thing, the reason Comlink came about was because across the Commonwealth, every locality has their own radio system. And while we try to standardize on something with budgets and the money involved, when we started Comlink 10 years ago, there were localities, especially out in the Southwest, that had 30 and 35-year-old radio systems. Whereas you've got, the great state of Northern Virginia, they get a new radio system every 2 or 3 years. The other localities can't afford to do that. So what we came up with was a system of systems which will allow you to tie any 2 radios together in a common talk group. And that way, it doesn't matter whether you're using VHF and I'm using HF or UHF. It really doesn't matter, because all we do is take the audio from the 2 radios and put them together in a talk group. That's an extremely powerful tool, and it allows us to actually provide interoperability between disparate radio systems. That's all I've got.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned that March 27th alert. That was for the registration at the community base at the Siebers training at State Police HQ. They have radio equipment there, but I don't think you guys are going to be asked to do that, to deal with that. That's VDEM's stuff in the watch center there. So yeah, they've got their own people. We're not going to be asked to do that.
Just one more strange thing that's going on. KD4 hacks, Joe Klein. There's a change in the federal agencies. They're trying to move to the new internet, and most of our radio gear is on the old internet. So that could cause conflictions between communications if you were using the internet to send radio information. Over.
Yeah. You know, I wasn't aware of that, but I think Bill, or were you aware of that?
Is he talking about moving to IPv6 or what changes are you talking about, sir?
Yeah, that's basically IPv6. I was trying to stay with the non-technical terms, but yeah, federal agencies have 80%. They're supposed to be all their assets IPv6 only. FirstNet's already added some things to it for v6 only. So just be aware. I want to make sure that we don't, if we have an emergency, we can still communicate.
Okay, I will check with the vendor. Thank you for bringing that up.